Hey everybody, it's Romania Black, and we are on episode 3 of Mob Psycho Season 3. And I should be recording ahead because I'm going to be gone the next couple weekends on a trip for work, and so I should be recording ahead, but I'll be honest, I have been waiting until the last minute to record Mob Psycho because I don't want to rush through this season because it's the last season and I'll be so sad. So I've been really behind on getting recording with Mob Psycho. I literally have to record today to get it ready to come out. So I'm like, but I've been really enjoying season 3 so far, which is another reason why I want to savor it for all that it's worth. So I appreciate everybody being super kind and not spoiling. Thanks for understanding. But we do have a nice Reigen Thirst update. There's been some great fan art shared. There was so much fan art shared for Mob Psycho the last couple days that I had to split it up. So some of this is going to go into episode 4 because I didn't want to do like a 10-minute Reigen Thirst update because there are some of these pieces that are pretty good. But yeah, so the last episode was like an amazing fever dream. Like a cultural festival while battling. I really love the trio of Serizawa, Reigen, and Mob. It's given me nostalgia for Reigen, Dimple, and Mob, but Dimple has decided to become a villain again for whatever reason. And I'm like, Dimple, what we doing? And so Dimple. I love Dimple's character, but I'm like, please don't become a villain again. You were doing so well, and you turned over so many leaves. Like, why? So, I know that maybe Dimple has an ulterior motive. Maybe Dimple's like, he's making a test for Mob or something. I don't know. But I am liking Serizawa, Reigen, and Mob together. It's a different dynamic because with Dimple holds Reigen accountable for every single thing that he does. And he makes fun of Reigen for every single thing that he does. With Serizawa, he's a dang golden retriever and he's a puppy and he's just like, am I doing this right? But he's super competent. So it's just, you know, if Serizawa wanted to, he wouldn't have to listen to Reigen, but he does listen to Reigen because it's Serizawa. So I'm loving it. It's great. I like the three of them working together, but I feel like, you know, we're getting into Mob's adolescence. Mob has come out of his shell so much, like starting to think for himself, be a leader. I'm like, yes, Mob is growing up and it's really cool. And he's not going with the flow. He's making decisions for himself. It's wonderful to see. So I'm excited for that for our boy, but I'm also like, I just want him to be happy. And I don't want is going to be like, well, he will be, but first. And I'm like, it's like Mob Psycho's angst with a happy ending. I'm like, those types of stories, I'm like, I can deal with a little shred of angst, but when you put a whole bunch of it in, I'm like, so as long as there's a happy ending, I'm fine. I can do that. More so than even bittersweet. So, but we need to talk about the Reigen Thirst update. So there was a lot of awesome art shared by different artists from Twitter that I want to talk about here. This first one, if you know Jujutsu Kaisen, then the Nanami Kinto and Gojo reference being alongside Mob and Reigen, it kind of works out great because Gojo and Mob would kind of be on equal footing, I feel. And then Nanami and Reigen, I mean, Nanami would probably have Reigen, but in terms of charisma, I think Reigen would keep right up with him. But I love that they're kind of our strawberry blonde, blondish characters in the khaki or neutral suits. And then Dimple looking at Gojo is very accurate. That's a mood. Dimple is a mood in that shot, and it's really funny. I really like this piece of art that is Reigen, because Reigen and Ritsu have always been kind of at odds with each other. Ritsu thinks that Reigen is sleazy and not a good influence for Mob, and Reigen doesn't realize Ritsu has this animosity. So I like this comment where Mob, of course, gets not mad, but disappointed in Reigen. And it's like, that's the worst thing you can say to somebody. Like, getting mad is an emotional knee-jerk reaction that everybody has those moments where you get mad. But when you say, I'm disappointed, you've thought about it. And it's like, it's like a crushing blow. Whether it's a parent doing it to you or a friend, it's like, or a coach, you're like, so I like Reigen's reaction where Mob says he's disappointed. And I love Ritsu's smug, like, haha, showed you up. And then Mob goes, and you too, Ritsu. And Ritsu has the exact same expression as Reigen. It's absolutely hilarious. I love that artist style. It's great. The first artist that drew that drew the one of Gojo and Nanami in them, also has it's Cade art. So if you go on Twitter and look up Cade art, their stuff of Reigen and Serizawa, I'm like, mwah, mwah. And it's not even romantic things, but it's like them going on like a shopping, like a date. And it's them looking at suits. And Reigen's like, you want to go in and see it? And it's like, that's the kind of real life stuff I could picture those two doing. They would go on a suit shopping date, or they would go to a ramen shop. Like they do like little domestic things like that. That's like, yes, I love it. It's so cute. But their artwork is so wonderful. And then we have Iria Arts, where they did Mob and Teru. I am a Mob Teru shipper, but I've been kind of sad the last season and a half because it seems like the Mob and Teru ship has slowly like been faded apart, and because Mob has to confess to Tsubomi at some point. But I find Teru a much more compelling character, and so I love this art where he's like, I love you, Mob. Mob's like, I know. It's the Princess Leia Han Solo thing where Princess Leia's like, I love you. And Han Solo goes, I know. Which is an ad-lib line, by the way, which is perfect. So I love, Mob would say I know, though. That's the cute thing. He would say I know. And Teru would just gobble it up, right? Because it's Teru, and I feel like Teru's a romantic at heart, based on what we've seen. Right? So he was in the same room. He did see Tsubomi at the pancake breakfast. So whatever's going to happen with that, because Teru knows her, even though he doesn't know her. So, and then this last one is so interesting. It's a piece of official artwork, right? This is official. It's not fan art. It's official art, but it's so weird because you have the four of them. It's like they've been on a day trip. They've gone shopping, got groceries, and then like Ritsu has an ice cream cone. Mob has this paper mache like samurai helmet that he's gotten, and then Sho has one as well. But they all have like the different groceries and stuff. I like that Sho's eating the tokiyaki that usually Reigen really likes, so that's kind of fun. But Reigen has they have this flag hanging over him and stuff, and Reigen's bought them all of these things. But then you cut to him, and he's like, it shows Serizawa being sad the money's flown away. So it's almost like Reigen took Serizawa's money and treated them to all this stuff instead, which is sad, but could I see Reigen doing it? Yes. Also Reigen in his classic tracksuit. I love its official art. It's absolutely hilarious. Ritsu's also in his like middle school attire, so I wonder if they just got off school and he didn't have time to change his clothes. Mob has his like Body Improvement Club gym outfit on, and Sho has his jacket draped over him like he's just, I feel like Sho is homeschooled. I feel like that's the case with him because he's been like with Claw and everything, so he seems like a homeschool student. I don't know. I'm so glad we saw Sho last episode because I'd been missing him already. So yeah, that's the Reigen Thirst update. Really good stuff. So I'm really excited, y'all. I can't wait to dive into this episode. I hope you all are too, but we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to see what happens in episode 3 of Mob Psycho season 3, and we are going to start that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. This episode was a little creepy. It had a little creepy factor there towards the end. I didn't feel the need to bring out Whiteboard Coon for this episode. I have a feeling it's going to come out later. So I know that that's going to be a thing that happens. But for this episode, for the most part, it was pretty straightforward until the end where it's like, okay, theory time. What's up with Tree Mob and the Divine Tree Founder? There's lots of things it could be. But I think the primary thing is that Dimple is involved to some degree, right? He has to be. But Mob, our sweet bean, it's so funny because on the one hand, I'm very glad for some of the character development that we get in this episode, specifically with Tsubomi-chan and Mob. Anytime that we get anything adding to the character themselves, I'm like, yes, because that just gives us more to work with as an audience, understanding why they're doing the things that they're doing. And so, with Mob, I'm really glad that this time Mob goes 100%. It's not something necessarily despairing or sad or upsetting, but it's that he gets a high horse. Like it's Mob, he gets thinking that he's popular when it's weird because on the one hand, two of the instances we see him getting stared at by girls are instances where he's around Ritsu and around Teru. And then there's an instance where everybody's looking at him, but it's really that god-awful shirt he's wearing. But then there is an instance towards the beginning where girls are looking at him. So it's like, well, maybe he is right. And then Emmy shows up like his life coach. She shows up and she's like, she Manny Pixie Dream Girls her way into the scene. And she's like, oh, you might be getting popular, Mob. And then runs off. And that just fuels him, right? But I'm glad Mob has more self-confidence in himself and that he's becoming more vocal about things, especially to Dimple. Because some of the things that Dimple tells him are really good. And some of the things that Mob tells Dimple are really good. So it's rather interesting. I wanted to kind of look at that Mob versus Reigen and versus Dimple in this episode and how they go about certain things, right? Because I believe Reigen and Dimple both care about Mob, but they both also have their own agendas, right? And Mob doesn't really prescribe to either of them necessarily. But in this episode, it's the typical middle school teenagers, love is in the air, everybody's Twitter-pated, like all the girls are talking about like Matt Suzaki-san being single and then asking about Tsubomi. I did want to make note that, Tsubomi's phone says something about the 44th. Something about the 44th annual something. And so the two girls that are friends with Tsubomi, they're drawn where they're not as cute as Tsubomi. It's almost like a parody. It's almost kind of obvious they're not as cute as her. And she's like, oh, I'm under the weather, actually. This is the weird thing about Tsubomi. And I'm glad we get some character development with her, that she's not just a stick in the mud. I'm glad we get some character development with her. She has issues of insecurity and she's self-conscious, which is good to see from her because this is like the most character development we've seen out of her in 3 seasons so far, is that she is a little bit self-conscious. She doesn't want people to make fun of her. So it's like, okay, good. She's human like everybody else. Wow, great. But it's kind of, I don't know. I've said throughout this entire series, Tsubomi has a hard row to hoe with me because I hold anybody that Mob has a crush on, I hold them up to a high standard. And so far we haven't seen enough out of Tsubomi. And so we get a little bit of character development with her in this episode, which I like. We find out she is insecure. She's very pretty, but she's worried that people will see how she is and make fun of her, which I can kind of see that because she's pretty. I feel like the moment that she cracks under that facade, everyone's going to point out her flaws and make fun of her. But I'm like, girl, being human's not a bad thing. Quit holding yourself on this high pedestal, right? It's okay. And I feel like Mob comes to her rescue and helps her and gives her the tissue and is super kind to her. And my frustration with that whole scene, I love seeing that she's actually kind of like Ritsu, right? She puts on this show of being this perfect pretty girl, but she's actually very self-conscious and doesn't want to be seen a certain way. She's kind of like, holds herself to this high standard. I'm like, she's a little bit like Ritsu in that she has this secret emotion, but she hides it with this facade, right? I'm okay with that as a character development. I wish we could do more with it. I wish we would have more with it, right? That she's just trying to act all perfect, but she's really not. And then Mob saves her from being, potentially made fun of. And he offers her the tissue, and we see the 2 butterflies. And as they're putting the trash in there, she was like, oh, thank you so much, Mob-kun. And he's like, oh, sure. And Mom's being super nice. Like, he's like, oh, sure. And he has a little blush. He's like, that's fine. And she says, oh, it's been a while since we've talked. And he's like, yeah. And then she says, thanks. See you later. I was like, what? Girl! The thing about it is, it's not like she doesn't know Mob. They've been childhood friends. They've grown up together. You say, oh, it's how that conversation would go in real life? If you came up to somebody and you're like, oh, thanks for getting me out of that situation. It's been a while since we've talked. Bye. That's so weird. And the thing that frustrates me is I don't know if she's nervous around Mob, if she's the one nervous around him. We need one more thing. I need one more thing with her. And I don't want anybody telling me, oh, we'll find out in episode 7. What? I don't want to know that. No. We'll find out this season. I am aware we will find out, hopefully, what her deal is. But as a viewer, it's so frustrating right now because I'm like, I feel like we're this far away from Tsubomi and we need to be closer to understand her better. Because I'm like, if she's nervous around Mob, if she actually has insecurities and she's nervous around him and thinks that he's great, that's wonderful. That's great character development. It's a nice subversion of the pretty girl's actually scared to talk to, the unpopular guy because she thinks she'll be turned down by him. She thinks she's going to be rejected. That's cool and all, but I feel like we need a little bit more to go off of to confirm that, right? It's not even a mystery at this point. It's just frustrating because we know there's either something there. Either she has a crush on him and she's afraid he's going to turn her down, so she wants to keep her distance. Cool, but we need to know a little bit more to confirm that. Or two, she's just being aloof, and I'm like, girl, get it together. I'm like, Mob actually came out and talked to her, and she just walked away from him. I'm like, you all know how I feel about Tsubomi. So I'm glad we get a little bit more about her. I'm glad we get confirmation she is a little bit more self-conscious than we thought. She's not just, I'm perfect sort of thing, but I just need more with her. And I'm sure we're going to get that this season because it seems like it's all leading up to Mob confessing to her. I'm sure we're going to get it, but I'm just like, I need more to feel better about her character. And right now it's just like a tease. And I don't like a tease. I'm like, it's like, one of those things like shit or get off the pot sort of situation, as my grandpa would say. And he's like, see you later. And of course, Mob, I like that Dimple tells Mob, he's like, dude, she just said see you later. It wasn't anything more than that. You're overreading it, right? But Mob's a teenage boy, and that's what you do. I do love the animation from the manga of him just flapping his little wings. It's so cute. I imagine that comes straight from the manga. Very, very cute. Mm-hmm. So Mob's walking home, and then that's when he notices Mezato. My other thing is that every other female character in this series has a much more dynamic and complicated relationship with him than the girl that's supposedly the love interest. That's always my biggest thing about shonen in general, is the girl that is the love interest never forms a relationship with the main protagonist until they confess and get together at the end. I'm like, what does that say? Like, I guess they're assuming that if you talk to a girl too long, you'll be friend zoned. I really, that's one trope about shonen that always bugs me, is that the girls that usually have really dynamic, developed, layered relationships with the male characters are not the love interests. And the ones that are love interests are like mysterious little trophies that are put to the side. And I'm like, that's just such a frustrating trope, especially if you are a female viewer. It's like, you can have a dynamic relationship with the guy you're interested in, and it's okay. But yeah, Mezato and Tome seem to have a much more dynamic relationship than Mob than Tsubomi-chan do. But Mezato is interesting. Like, I will talk about her conversation with him and the phone call, right? But she asks him to become the founder of the Psycho Helmet religion, and he's like, I'm not interested. And she's like, oh, come on, please, just for a second. And then Tome's like, Mob, don't forget that you're supposed to help me look up telepaths, right? I think Mob definitely misreads the situation, being like, I'm popular, these girls are really into me. I'm like, no, these two girls are kind of using you for their own means, but Mob doesn't get that. And it makes it seem like a weird love triangle when it's not at all. So that's really funny, but Mob's just kind of like, oh. And then we see Emmy come up, and Emmy's like, oh, look at you playing dumb. Like, she just notices, all she does is Emmy comes up and sees Tome and Mezato trying to get his attention, and she sees them split in the love triangle situation, and she just assumes something. She is the weirdest MacGuffin. She's just like the weirdest conflict starter. I'm like, girl, what? She just comes in and starts conflict like it's nothing. And he's like, oh, well, I love the little flower sprouting on his head. He's like, wasn't for long, but I got to talk to Tsubomi-chan alone. And then Ritsu's like, hey, can we walk home together? And he's like, Ritsu. And I love we have all the butterflies attaching themselves to the flower, like a representation of all the girls being attracted to Mob. He's like, I might be getting popular. And Ritsu's like, wait, what? And he's like, oh, forget I said anything. Never mind. And Ritsu's like, hold on, you can't just say that. And Mob thinks maybe he's getting the wrong idea. But then he notices all the girls that are looking towards him. And it's really that they're looking towards Ritsu. right? They're looking at Ritsu because Ritsu's the handsome one. And they say Kageyama-kun's so hot, but they're referring to Ritsu, not Shigeo. And then when he actually hears the Shigeo, it's all him hearing things, right? I love he's like loosening the collar up. And then the one girl says, right, Ritsu-kun's great and so refined. And Mob just like, he starts to doubt himself, but then he's like, I'm definitely popular. I just love his hair flapping in the breeze. It gets silkier. And then the one girl says, Shigeo-kun's so hot. And this is where it says he's hearing things. That is not what is being said. But all the girls are looking at Ritsu. And I love that he just gets more manly and chadish as it goes. He just becomes a Giga Chad in this one moment. Oh my god. On a high horse. Mm-hmm. And I love Ritsu being like, congratulations, Nissan. You're popular. Because honestly, that's what Ritsu... It makes sense that Ritsu's happy for Mob because all he's wanted is for Mob to not get bullied and to be confident and sure of himself. So Ritsu's all about this. But I like that Reigen takes the adult approach here and he's like, oh, he's on a high horse. Like, Reigen's like, oh, I know what this feels like. He's like, oh, no. It's great. So we skip the OP. They do a good job of building up this damn tree that has been getting bigger and bigger and all of the energy going towards the tree, and Dimple's been collecting it all. Which, the scenarios, I love the couple that's in the hotel room being like, look at this great view. It's a damn broccoli. I love it. It's a damn broccoli. And they can't realize it. But Dimple has made note that because it is a broccoli and not an actual tree, it can't legit gain power like that. So Dimple's been gaining all the power as well. But here's the thing. There's those roots spread throughout the town that seem to formulate the mob. So, okay, theory time. And I don't want anybody in the comments saying whether this theory is true or not, or whether it's wrong or not. We're going to find out in the next couple episodes, I'm sure. But my theories are, one, that it's Dimple creating this tree-like thing because he got mad, or because he felt like, maybe not that he got mad, but he felt kind of called out by Mob. And so he's like, well, Mob's not going to help me, so I'm just going to do this myself. So either Dimple made the tree being and is using it to control the religion. That's one aspect that it could be. And he's using the energy built up to do all the things like grow the mini broccoli, the mini divine tree, even though it's a bigger broccoli. Two, it is actually a fragment of Mob's soul or Mob's energy that has like separated during his battle with Suzuki and created this whole new being, this spiritual being that's like a fragment of Mob's soul that's like gone awry and it's like sucking up energy around it. Could be that. Three, it could be that it's its own entity, that some like spirit has come out of nowhere and saw the divine tree and was like, oh, there's all this energy here, I'm going to attach onto that, and is making itself into its own being. And it's just using the divine tree and the energy from the city to kind of power itself. And it's just an enemy all of its own. So either it's Dimple related, it's Mob related, or it's something entirely new that we don't know about. Or it could be a combination, right? It could be a combination. But it seems like it's one of those three things. But Dimple gathering up all this energy and saying that he wants to, the energy is colossal. So he's like, I'm just going to put it to good use and become a god myself. He just wants to use Mob as the figurehead because Dimple's a ghost. He's like, well, I'll just use Mob as the figurehead and I'll be the god, Mob will be my mouthpiece, and we'll work together and control this entire city. But Mob kind of points out, he's like, what is the purpose of you doing all this? What's the point? And Dimple doesn't really have an answer. He's like, oh, well, you know. And Mob's like, yeah, what? And he's just like, he doesn't really know how to answer the question. Dimple wants something, but he doesn't know what he's going to do once he gets it, right? Which is kind of similar to Mob. Mob thinks that he knows what he wants, like with Tsubomi and stuff, but then we don't know what he's going to do once he gets the chance to ask her out. What's going to happen afterwards, right? I love the mom when Mob gets the phone call from the girl. I love the mom shuffling in the background, trying to eavesdrop and listen to what's going on, because she's like, my son's talking to a girl. Like, I love the mom like peeking behind the door, and Mob's like, let's change this to my cell phone. Let's get Mom off the other end. That's so funny. So we go to Mezato. She calls Mob to tell him about these auditions for the psychic leader. And she's like, I can't let just anybody become the leader of the Psycho Helmet religion. She's like, I built this thing from the ground up. I'm not going to have some lame-o take control of it. No, she wants Mob to take it over. And I like that she says that wouldn't it be cool for a middle schooler to run this religion? I feel like that's part of Mezato's MO, is that she's a middle school kid and she thinks it would be interesting to see someone her age have this big figure of this big authority, this big symbol of power. So that kind of makes more sense why she wants Mob to be the leader of it. She knows he is capable and it kind of fits her own goals. I love her room. She has like the books everywhere. Her room is kind of like how my room would be. It's like an organized clutter. There's like stacks of books and things everywhere. Mezato's room is kind of how my room would be if I was in that space. I like the windows that she has all around. That's really cute. She's got the little, like, all the bulletin boards and everything. And she has like a little broccoli doll like on the table. I like Mezato's room. It's really cute. She's like, yeah, you're a psychic. You have all this power. And then she lays down the real thing. She's like, if you do this, Sabomi-chan might ask you out. Like, girl's playing hardball. She is like, so Mezato does not care about Mob in that capacity. She's just a friend, but she's trying to use him to get him to become the religion founder so that he can impress Sabomi-chan. And I love that when Mob like becomes Chad mode, his voice deepens. He's like, everyone needs me. Like, his voice gets deeper and he has like he looks like Rock Lee from Naruto. It's great. But so Dimple shows up and he is like on fire. Dimple has all the flames from all this energy that he's been getting, right? And so he's like, what's happened to you? And I like Dimple's like, why do you have that face and voice? Dimple breaks the fourth wall and it's great. And so Dimple, what I do like that Dimple does here is he tries to get Mob off of his high horse. He tries to say, hold on. He's like, you got the wrong idea just because she said, see you later. He's like, and Mob's like, well, no, that's not a misunderstanding. That's the truth. And he's like, oh, well, she may have said that, but just because you talk to a girl, it happens all the time to prepubescent boys. He's like, those stares that you think you're seeing are misunderstandings. And it is a little harsh when he says, no one even notices you more than you can imagine. It is a little harsh him saying that. But he's coming from a place of trying to help Mob. And Mob's like, well, why would you say that? You weren't there. And Dimple says, I'm telling you this because I care about you. And I do believe that. I do believe at Dimple's core, he does care enough about Mob to be like, look, he's like, I don't want you to get the wrong idea and get your heart broken when you're wrong. But then he transitions from that little heartfelt moment to asking him to help him become a god. And it's like, well... He's like, about that. He's like, you're not actually popular, which is why I want to help you. And Mob's like, well, this has nothing to do with you. And Dimple says, well, don't you remember I was the leader of this religious organization, so I've got experience with this. And Mob's like, yeah, but you brainwashed people, and that's why they followed you. He's like, these people follow the Psycho Helmet religion, and it's just this peaceful, weird thing. And there's nothing wrong with it. Nobody's getting hurt, right? Nobody's getting hurt, right? He's like, why would I want to get involved with that? I love that Mob's like, not everyone is the one that everyone is seeking is me and not you, Dimple. It's like he goes into Giga Chad mode again and Dimple's like, oh. I love that image of Dimple just looking up at him with his little side face. I'm gonna take a picture of it just being like, what the hell? This kid's got an ego right now. This little shit. Yeah. And he's like, do you think you have the power to control the masses? And the thing is, yeah, I think he does. I don't think Mom knows how to use it. But yeah, he's like, I didn't say anything about being their founder. He's like, I know I'm not cut out for that. And Dimple wants to join forces with him. And Mob's like, but then what are you going to do? If you don't know what you're doing after that, I'm not going to help you. And he's like, if we don't do this, some other jackass is going to come and take over. And they're going to keep all the divine energy to themselves. And Mob's like, so the reason you're stronger is you took some energy from the broccoli. And Dimple's like, well, yes. And he says, that's fine and all, but you're also trying to take them over too. So he's like, how does that make you different than anybody else? He's like, how are you different than the other guys if you're just doing the same thing that they do? And then he's like, why don't you give your schemes a rest already? And then what was the book that fell down? I wanted to see the book that fell down. It was, I wanted to pause on that. Oh, so You and Me, Murakami Natsuki. So it's like that moment of You and Me, that moment of tearing Mob and Dimple apart is Mob being like, just give it a rest. Quit trying to take over the world. And then we just see Dimple leave. He doesn't say hi to Ritsu. He just leaves and goes. I like we cut to Reigen's office. Reigen like talks to Serizawa, and Reigen's like, how's school going? And Serizawa's like, well, it's fine. I did get a little sad when Serizawa said he was giving up on making friends, and I was like, oh no. But he's like, I'll do my best. And Reigen's like, okay. And then Mob has something to talk about. Mob's like, why are you asking us questions, Reigen? And Reigen's excuse is he's so bored at work that he wants to ask them what's going on. There's nothing to do. So yeah, then we have the pictures of the vines crawling up the city. It says the Ramen Egg Prefecture. And then we have, please list what supernatural phenomenon you'd like investigated. It's like unnatural deterioration of our home. So this vine is like coming in and tearing down the home. Like, is it sucking the energy out of the entire place? I don't know. Is that something Dimple would do? Or is it something beyond Dimple? I feel like it's beyond Dimple, but I don't know. I don't know for sure. And so he tells them to have the day off. Like, Reigen does not see that this is a spirit and possibly something to be scared of. Teru notices, though. Teru feels like something's up. So I'm glad Teru is aware that something is happening. And so he wants to hear what's going on in Mob's life. And Serizawa takes his leave just to leave Mob and Reigen together. And I love that Mob just says, oh, hey, by the way, I'm going to be going to a religious gathering. Reigen's like, wait, what? I love Reigen's like, hold on. What, are you okay with that? What's happening? And he's like, oh, I might be the founder of this religious group. And Reigen's just like, He's like, are you going to be their founder? And then at first he's like, oh, this seems shady, Mob, and very mediocre. But then we go down. He's like, yikes, don't do it, Mob. And then as they go down, like, it's had like 62 million hits on this website. And then it says your online shop opened where you can find all the new merch that you asked for. You can always keep God by your side. Our Lord's mug and tumbler. Our Lord's towel set and ballpoint pin set. Our Lord's fan and can badges. Our Lord's key holder. They'll be released in the shop on this date. Oh my God. It's like all like a proxy order. It's like, listen to God's voice. Oh my God. And then he goes, this is clearly as shady as... And it says... like, Psycho Helmet TV surpasses 1 million subscribers on MeTube. Oh my God. Okay, now the access, it says Ramen Egg Prefecture. So the Divine Tree stuff is accessing the part of the city where everybody's complaining about the vines. Okay. And then we see over 580,000 believers. And he's like, wait, what? And I love Reigen being like, this is a chance for me to get money. He's like, a true man should be the founder of a religious group at least once. I'm like, oh, Reigen. So it's like Dimple and Reigen they both care about Mob, and they both, at the end of the day, want what's best for him, but then they have their own agendas, and they, in some capacity, use Mob for those agendas. And I feel bad for Mob in that sense, because Mob can kind of see through it at this point. I mean, I think Mob goes along with Reigen because Reigen's request is pretty harmless. He's like, just go and tell them about me. And Mob's like, okay. Whereas Dimple wants him to lead the people. Reigen just wants him to show up and do a promotional plug. Right? But he does give Mob 5,000 yen. Which, for giving him just spare change and then giving him an advance bonus to go get some nice clothes, that's really cute. But Teru, you did our boy wrong. You did our boy wrong, right? I was waiting for him to be like, who's going to help me shop for clothes? And I'm like, well, Teru has the best fashion in all of Mob Psycho, so obviously. But here's the thing about Teru. One, Teru can pull off anything. He can wear literally anything in this show, and it looks great on him. 2, he does offer Mob some really nice options at first, but they're too expensive. So he goes for the branding element and finds something that's in that brand, but is really cheap. And I've done that before where everybody was like, oh, you should get this brand, but I couldn't afford it. So I like bought the cheapest thing there. I'm a salesman's nightmare at a commission-based retail store, because if I go into like a fancy store, I go instantly to the sale rack and I'm like, I want something that's for sale. And everybody's like, well, what about this new thing? And I'm like, no. So I never pay full price for clothes. I'm like, no, thank you. And so that's the funny part, is that Terry was like, well, I guess we'll just stick with this since it's, on sale and on brand. But I love this little shopping trip. I love Teru helping him out. It's so cute. There's a random Tennessee license plate in the store on the wall that looks CGI'd in. The Tennessee license plate from the US is hilarious. It was throwing me off the entire time. I was like, that's the most random thing to be in here. What? And then Ritsu's like, oh, Teru helped you pick that out. Oh. And it has the monkey. I like that it has the 3 monkeys, like see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. I like that there's that connection with the monkeys. It's very nice. And then we have the butterfly. We had 2 insects throughout this episode, which insects have been a weird way of communication throughout Mob Psycho. We had the dragonfly and we had the butterflies, which is a weird combo because if you think about it, dragonflies have been around since the age of dinosaurs. They're kind of like an immortal insect species that have lasted the test of time. And butterflies are very fickle. They like arrive quickly, leave quickly. They have a very short lifespan. So it's a really cool dynamic if you have something, an insect in this episode that is timeless, like the prospect of love. The aspect of love and loving someone is a timeless concept that will always be there for humans. But love and romance itself can be very fleeting, like a butterfly. So I thought that was pretty cool. I liked that. But then, again, one has all of this lore with all of these different groups that show up, like the Dragon Sigh. I was like, oh my god. Like, I just love they all have the tattoos and they look like monks. It is the funniest damn thing. I love it so much. The dragon's nest is the divine tree. And they've built like this statue of the broccoli, but it looks more like a tree. So, and then there's just druids and things like just... And then these other random weirdos just showing up to be the founder. And Judo's there too to try to do it for the Rising Sun Spiritual Union. And so, yeah, everybody's just waiting to see their founder arrive. And I am a little freaked out. At this point in the episode, it gets a little creepy. Because not only does Tome-chan not show up, but neither does Mezato. So, what's the deal? Why are they not there? Why did they not show up? What's going on? The cell phone service isn't working. What's up with that? I don't like it. I don't like it! No! It's a little bit freaky, and I'm not a fan. I don't know how to feel about that. Also, we're talking about Reigen in his apartment, right? We cut back to the apartment, and there's, like, the water cooler. He has his couch. He's looking on his computer. And so there's the TV is like, he's like, Mom's taking a while ago. And he's like, I wonder what the next one's like. I'm going to go to the bathroom. Looking forward to the next one. That was decent. And I love his pajamas have this bear on it. And he's eating ramen from a cup. I'm like, oh, Reigen, sweetheart. Keep living the dream. I love it. And then that's when he's like, oh, there's Mob. But that's not Mob. I thought for a second it was just some guy in the organization that had a similar haircut. But no. Instead, it's this very weird being made out of these roots. And then Reigen's like, what the hell? And he's like, the psycho helmet. And he's like, that's not Mob. And then he tries to call Mob, but it's not working. And he's almost... What does he say here? He's like, the phone's out of battery. His phone's out of battery. And then everybody's like just staring at this weirdo. He's like, we need someone to protect this city. I'll be the one who will lead everyone to happiness. And he's like, just created by all the vines and stuff? Nope. I wonder if like the vines, if this is like just a deranged entity or a piece of Mob or something that's gained its own consciousness, if it's been sucking all of the desires and energies out of the city and that's what it's basing itself off of, or if this is a Dimple creation. I've got to watch the next episode to find out. Right? He's like, I plan to change this degenerate world along with the psycho helmet religion. But its eyes look real. And then he says his phone's dead. So is it sucking the battery? Is it sucking the energy out of people's devices and stuff too? What is it doing? And then everybody kind of has like a reaction to it. And then he uses his power to grow the broccoli thing. But yeah, when it cuts from Mob looking up and then cuts to the divine tree thing. But are they connected? What's the deal? I don't know. I don't know. So, This was a really good episode, but it felt like a transition from episode 2 to episode 4. And I don't think I'm going to be able to wait to watch episode 4. So, we'll see though. We'll see. So, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Huckleberry's like, I need you to play with me more. I'm going to go play with my dog now. So I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to wait. I think I'm going to go ahead and watch our episode for next week here in a little bit, which is going to be episode 4 of season 3 of Mob Psycho. Bye.